friends. It is Sunday, which means it is time for Musically Minded, where we talk about musically minded things, a peek behind the curtain at DJing, and how music and brains and all of these things affect each other and how that affects what we do as DJs and musicians. And I've got a cat who does not wish to relinquish the chair for me here. Boo Kitty is I don't know if you can see her on camera there, but she's right here, this little black ball of fuzz behind me. So I'm hovering uncomfortably on the edge of my seat, and I hope you are too, out of excitement for Musically Minded. Ha! Yeah. All right, so let's see. So let's say hi to DJD42.
Good morning.
There she is. You sound a little slow, Diana.
A little bit.
A little bit slow. That is because we had an awesome party over here last night. We had a birthday bash for Diana, did some spooky spins. We had a bunch of friends over, and of course did the show over here on Twitch, right here on my channel, Addambombb, if you didn't remember. Yeah, we had an absolute blast last night, and it ended with the absinthe getting. We broke out the good stuff.
Yeah.
And we were drinking absinthe and gin and absinthe all night long, and it was a good time. But yeah, so that's why we're in a little bit slow motion today. Frantic, good to see you out there. You know what? Go ahead and get your questions up in the chat there for us, and we're gonna get things going in just a moment. But since we were talking about last night, why don't we talk about the stuff that's coming up? Next week, of course, it's a Retro Rumpus. 2 weeks from now, it'll be the Wicked Party, spinning the swinging grooves. And Wednesday, we've got New Music O'Clock. Diana and I are hosting it on our other channel, MTV TV, 24/7 music videos from the bleeding edge. And let's see. And today we're going to raid over to Space Couch, but why don't you tell us, Diana, there's an interesting connection between New Music O'Clock this week and Space Couch.
Well, I asked Ex Hyena if they had any new videos, and they sent them immediately to me, and I found out that Space Couch is interviewing Ex Hyena from Boston.
From Boston.
Today.
So yeah, so we're going to raid over to Space Couch and listen to the Squawkmeister grill Ex Hyena from Boston. We're going to get to see some of their new stuff on New Music O'Clock as well. We've got some other cool shit on New Music O'Clock. We're actually very excited. We've got the new one from B-Born Benton, who is an absolute legend in our scene. And we've got a very special, a new version of a U-Shriek favorite. And so I do hope you all will join us for New Music O'Clock on Wednesday. And that's pretty much the nutshell of that stuff. Where were we in our conversations? We had a really good show last week, and we ended the show talking a bit about communications with Frantic here, and who's already got a question up in there and says, "Did you guys see the Green Fairy?" That is a very good question. Not yet.
Not yet. Yet. Purple, though, you know.
Yeah, the purple fairy. We had the black absinthe last night. It's very good stuff. Oh, there we go. Boo let me have my seat back. Yay. All right. So now that we're all good and comfortable, so yeah, we were talking about communications, and before that, we were talking a bit about you know, the development of technology, I suppose, and the use thereof, from cutting tape to digital days, and all of these fun things. Where are we left off in our conversation? We're always kind of running down rabbit holes, and I get lost.
We really do, and I try to keep track of it all. Yes, we did ask the question before, like, what does being a DJ even mean? But there are a lot of ways to approach DJing as a hobby and a career. So my question is, like, where do we see and hear DJs And what are some of the potential ways to explore DJing professionally?
Okay. Well, that's a rabbit hole we can run down for a little bit. Where are some places that we see and hear DJs, different opportunities for career? Actually, y'all might have some thoughts on that, and if you want to pop them up in the chat, we'll call them out. Um, so in my career, I've done a lot of general business, mobile DJ work, and a lot of nightclub stuff. And I started off kind of in broadcasting. Those are all things that have their sort of, how would you say, subsections as well. So, obviously, when the pandemic hit, we all came over here to Twitch. So that's a place now where we see and hear DJs that a few years ago we did not. And the technology didn't really exist, or at least not accessibly so, as we were talking about last week, until more recent years. And so it was kind of a strange thing, because all of a sudden the places that you would usually see DJs, we couldn't do those things anymore. Like, where do you see DJs? Well, how about this, Diana? I'm going to throw the question back at you a little bit and say, well, where are some places that you've seen and heard DJs?
I mean, for me, it's been on radio, it's been on
Radio.
internet, it's been at corporate functions.
There you go. Corporate functions.
Really anywhere, honestly.
Yeah. Weddings.
Weddings, cruise ships.
Cruise ships, yeah. They talked about that a bit too.
A little bit. Oh, geez. Anywhere, really.
Well, the reason that I'm saying this is because, we've talked a bit before about the ubiquity of music in our lives. There's kind of a constant soundtrack going on. Any place you go, there's music on. Anything that you're watching on TV, it's kind of, you notice more if there's not music on sometimes.
Yes.
Oh gosh, like when we went to that coffee shop.
Oh, go ahead. You tell it.
You want me to tell this?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this is what we do on Musically Minded, is we come up with concepts and then we tell stories, right? Anecdotes. So we when we went over for the Man Ray opening party, we stopped into a coffee shop in Cambridge that we had never been. It's a new coffee shop, and we had never been in there before. And it's where Pearl Art used to be, which is funny because I worked there for a while. as pretty much anybody in the goth scene did. If you lived around Cambridge, you probably worked at Pearl Art for a little while. It was one of those places that, you could get hired and have really weird hair. But this coffee shop now, it's like we walked in and we're like, oh, this is cool. It's got like that kind of hipster rustic look, the exposed brick and beam kind of thing going. And then the back, third or so of the place is like a little reading library with like little couches and stuff. But we were there, and like, it was like we felt like we had to whisper like it was a library. And we were talking, and we were like, we're talking at like a normal volume, and people are like looking at us like, why are these people talking? It was kind of weird. And it was kind of like, it was a little while before we realized, we're like, there's no music going on here. I've never been in a cafe that didn't have some music going on. I'm like, where's the Etta James? You know what I mean? And it was pretty strange. Of course, I have a book that is like all about that. Julian Treasure's book, Sound Business.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say, I think you've borrowed that one from me. That's a really interesting one, because that book does nothing. I mean, all it is talking about is that about that about sound treatments in different spaces and that sort of stuff. It's really interesting if you're into that kind of geeky shit, which we are, which is why we're doing this show. But yeah, so it was quite strange, because like, obviously, so one of the things that Julian Treasure talks about is how the quality of the sound itself affects us. And so like if you're like shopping in the mall and the sound system is like overdriving and distorted kind of thing, like it makes us more anxious and kind of angry.
Mm-hmm.
And how the different even different kinds of music, like I mean, we talk a lot about how music affects us emotionally, and how we express emotion through music and we feel emotion through music. One of the things that is kind of amazing to me about music is I think of it sometimes as like borrowing emotions, so that we can feel the things that we need to feel in like a safe way. Which
I do have a story to that effect, actually.
tell us.
So I have been in the hospital a few times over months, and I distinctly recall one of the last times I was in the hospital that they have in Baltimore. They hired someone to come in every Wednesday to play, to DJ, if you will, um, something, whatever they chose.
Hmm.
And it happened to be like thinking that it would be a calm thing to be playing music,
Oh.
if you will. And apparently, all the other patients were getting along with it fine. And I was in my room, anxious as all get out. Like, I could not stand it. I could not stand it. But they were playing it over the loudspeaker so that everybody could hear it and everybody would
Boy,
be happy about this. And I could not take it.
that sounds like a little slice of hell to me. I'm like, I'm on hold. I'm on hold.
That's what it felt
In
like.
terminal. Actually, well, this is something that I've noticed. Like I have like complained to customer service reps and been like, you need to tell whoever you need to tell that you have to fix your phone music system, because sometimes it's like so mad crunchy, and I'm particular about it because I have worked on those systems, like
Hmm.
when I was doing Guitar Center and that kind of stuff. I literally worked on the intercom and phone systems because I was kind of the only person on the team who knew how to do it. And yeah, if it's overdriven, it is just absolutely angering. And of course, the Muzak doesn't help any. But so getting back to, I'm going to use your story to loop back around to where we were about like places that you hear DJs. Like, to be perfectly honest with you, I've never done a hospital gig. I've done retirement facilities and that sort of
Hmm.
stuff, and you go in and they basically tell you what they want to hear, like
Hmm.
at the time for me it was like the swing and sock hop
Right.
kind of stuff. But of course now we're getting at the age where, like, it won't be long before the retirement home gigs are basically what us old goth guys do anymore, because we'll be Bella Lugosi's deading it up in our walkers, as Generation X becomes uh, you know the oldsters, the
I'm.
seniors.
I might find a way to get you a hospital gig to check that one off your list.
You know, um, well, I have had a lot of interesting gigs. So now, okay, actually, this is making me think of something. So like now, when this DJ was doing it, he basically like plugged into the house PA,
Yes.
so to speak. So it
Hmm.
wasn't like you saw him or anything.
No.
It wasn't. Yeah. Okay. Of course, the parties that I've done for retirement homes and that kind of stuff, it's like in their rec center kind of
Hmm.
things. It's like
Hmm.
a dance and everybody comes down and shuffles.
Right.
Has a
Right.
good time.
No, it was so that everyone in each room could hear.
Yeah. Well, of course, the reason that we would do stuff in the retirement homes and play that old music is because, it's an interesting. This is a really interesting thing. Oh boy. Okay, I got a couple of stories that we're gonna have to
Sure.
run down. And
Sure.
Frantic, I do see that you have a question up there, and I promise we will get to it. We always do, right?
Right?
We do have to keep an eye on the time to do it, but
Right.
we're
We
only
do.
15 minutes into the
Okay.
show, so we're doing great. So, all right, so here's a story for you, a couple of stories. So, an interesting thing about music, and we've talked about this before, is that songs can transport you to a time and place in your past,
Mm-hmm.
and they make you feel like then. It's a beautiful thing that happens in our brains, and we're very lucky to experience that as a sentient species and as a culture. So, um, uh, when when you're playing these things, like people, okay, this is a thing, like Alzheimer's, right, is a very
Mm-hmm.
serious
Mm-hmm.
issue. As we extend lifespan, we find things that are,
Right.
that affect us as we get older in new ways, and Alzheimer's has been very prevalent. And one of the things that's interesting, shit, I borrowed the book from you, Sachs. Oliver
Yeah,
Sacks
Oliver
talks
Sacks.
about this.
Mm-hmm.
With the Alzheimer's patients, that it's like they had no idea basically where they were on any given day or anything, but play them a song and they were instantly transported back to that time, and they had all of the memories
Mm-hmm.
surrounding it. And it's amazing, amazing stuff. And so, when you play something like, a retirement home or something, and you're playing the music from their youth, and as we talked about a number of shows ago, in that window in which the foundations of our music are really cemented in our brains,
Mm-hmm.
um, they come alive and become young again. All
Uh-huh.
right, and I have a really specific story about this. I've taken you to the jazz club in D.C. there that I used to hang out in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what was it? The station,
Yep.
right? There was this. I was living in D.C. for a while, and there was this awesome jazz club in Adams Morgan, and it was just maybe a block and a half from. I mean, I could like roll down the street, like and go, and gosh, I love this place. And so uh what was it, Thursday nights or something like that? I don't know, it was a jazz club all the time, but like they would have there was this one particular night, and and they had kind of a rotating cast of musicians. It was kind of like whoever's around and feels like jamming kind of night. And like some legendary fucking cats played at this night, and it's just like, I'd go down there. I was the youngster in there, and I'm like, what, was 40 fucking something years old, and I was the youngster in this place. They called me youngster, and they thought it was kind of funny that like somebody my age, a Generation Xer who's into jazz music, but these guys made me fucking weep with fucking joy to hear them play. Nude Jensen on the saxophone. That's how I
Oh,
found the
oh,
club. As
yeah.
I was walking up the street. I'd gone down to get some falafel at Amsterdam, and I was walking back up the street, and I heard this fucking saxophone playing, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. And I was like, wait a minute, that's fucking live. And I sniffed it out like a fucking hound dog, and I ended up in this place, and I looked around, and I was like, oh my fucking god. I was like, that's fucking Butch Warren over there. Like motherfucking Butch Warren. So if you don't know who Butch Warren is, I'm going to say look him up, because he has played on some of the most critically acclaimed jazz records of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say that. Now these are cats that, like, they played with like Louis Armstrong. They played with Duke Ellington. In fact, the bridge by my house was the Duke Ellington Bridge, named after him, because that was the center of jazz in that day.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these cats, these old timers, they toured with these guys, they recorded with these guys, and Butch Warren. And the reason I bring up Butch Warren is he's such an important and impressive figure. And he's no longer with us, sadly, but passed away a number of years ago now. But I mean, here is this guy, and he wasn't a day younger than 75. I mean, he was, easily late 70s, early 80s, and when the band was off, right, he'd be sitting at the bar next to his wife, who, by the way, is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. She is like what I think Nefertiti must have looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, gorgeous. And the way that she looked at him, pure love. And he would be like hunched over. He's very tall. He's even taller than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got these, I mean, like, my hands are big, but his hands are like extended big. Like, what was the Paganini? They're Paganini. He's got Paganini fucking hands. And he, so, it'd be like, oh, it's time to play. Okay, you're out. So you're like with his drink, and he would like kind of shuffle over to his spot and pull up his bass, and he'd sit himself behind it, and he'd get in that spot, and then all of a sudden his spine would snap fucking straight. Like, as soon as the first fucking note was, like, his spine would snap fucking straight, and he was 20 fucking years old, and his hands just all over that thing, just like, it's pure jazz. It's the, like, what I was talking about, what I call the jazz,
Mm-hmm.
what Ron Zabrocki was talking about what was it, unconscious competence, right? Unconscious competence, just like not even thinking about it, he's just there, he was transported. And so suddenly this tall, bent old man became youthful and straight,
Yes.
and postured,
Yes.
and snapped to it. And and I do think that's kind of, that is one of the amazing things about music and minds, being musically minded. But to continue on with the conversation, where are some other places, pardon me, that we see DJs? I hadn't thought about hospitals. That isn't interesting.
Well, if I may speak to what you're talking about, at physical therapy, and once a week they had someone come in, and the people that were Parkinson's patients, brain injury patients, like that couldn't really keep to walking in a straight line. The music was playing, and all of a sudden they had a beat and they had something to think about, and they could dance, like, all of a sudden, like you were saying, straight up. All of a sudden they could dance, they could move, because they had the music to move to. As soon as the music was done, it was like they couldn't keep a straight line anymore. But when the music was playing, they could follow it, they could dance to it, they could move in the straight line. It was amazing.
So, interestingly enough, our conversation has accidentally talked to musically minded.
Mm-hmm.
Um, music is processed in its own part of the brain. It's let's see, it's in the left, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
I believe. My brain map is not that great, but it is somewhere up in the left there. And it's actually on the opposite side of our language functions. So people who stutter, this was in like a Piers Anthony book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it was the stuttering prince who becomes Mars, the god of war, right?
Yeah.
Where he he learned to sing his words instead of speaking them,
Mm-hmm.
and then he did not have a stutter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so people that have damage to the language and the speaking part of our brain can often regain um, their uh, their their speaking function by switching to that other part of the brain. Now, the interesting thing about this is like the musical part of our mind is like hardwired with fast connections to like all the parts of our brain, right? Our conscious mind, our unconscious mind, our lizard brain, everything is hardwired in there, and it all connects to the music thing. If there's no music involved, the pathways that we do things on in our mind don't involve that music part of our brain, but everything is connected. So when it comes to things like motor coordination, right? If it's going direct from the part of the brain that says like move your leg, um, to the part of the brain that goes I moved the leg, like that takes one pathway. But if it says move the leg and follow this rhythm, it goes through a whole different pathway. um and so music can actually be used, as you said, to like improve coordination and function and that kind of thing. And of course, this is why it's like you watch the old sea movies and they're like heave ho, and they kind of get those rhythms going. The drummer is beating the drum and people are rowing, and like the Egyptian pharaoh is, but like that's the thing, is that rhythm has always been used, in civilization and pre pre-civilization human history. I don't like to use the word prehistory because it's kind of a bad concept, but anyway, um, to coordinate movement among groups of people. Obviously we use it militarily for war because we're that kind of a culture. Poor us. And but yeah, obviously, if we're talking about negative histories in this country, the slave songs, right, as they're working the plantations, um, listening to that music makes you weep for their suffering. But they did it to keep their rhythms and to pass their days. Um, but yeah, to this day, of course, when we're doing events and things like you were talking about, corporate functions and weddings, what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing, we've talked about this before, is we're connecting a group of minds with music.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of an interesting thing because, we are talking, the long conversation being, what is a DJ anyway, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
oh, what a horrible can of worms we opened up on that one. Checking the time, it's 2:30. And connecting it in this way, it's like, here's a something to consider, I suppose. Um, like a DJ is somebody who connects minds through music, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, so let us. Should we take a break from this conversation and talk about Frantic's question
We
there
could
real quick?
we could bring up Frantic's question real quick. Sure.
I think we ought to do that. I do want to continue this conversation about like, because again, this is like a big can of worms that we can continue on. Um, we can continue next week, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. But this whole idea of like, where do we see and hear DJs, and like the different possibilities of DJing
Mm-hmm.
as hobby and career,
Right.
right? That's where we're all driving down towards it with your question.
Mm-hmm.
We have barely begun to scratch the surface of that in the 20 something minutes we've been talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to give Frantic some fair air here. So would you kindly read the question for me?
Here's Frantic's question. That they saw on Facebook chat group. Is DJing supposed to be constantly just pressing button after button?
um, if you give an infinite number of monkeys a typewriter and an infinite amount of time, will they write Shakespeare? Um, like, is DJing supposed to be just constantly pressing button after button? Okay, so okay, this you know, one of the things that we kind of see a lot in the joking about DJs kind of memes. I mean, like I actually have a Facebook group. My secret Facebook group is DJ Dank memes, and and been doing it for several years. So just like whenever we find it, and it has to be very good ones. It's like we see a lot of DJ memes. We're like, that's kind of funny, but it's not dank. You know what I mean? So it has to be dank to go up on DJ Dank memes. And we really like to pick on ourselves a bit when we do it. DJ Loki in the house, who's also a contributing member of DJ Dank memes. One of the things that kind of comes up a bit in DJ humor is like, you know, people that like fake pressing knobs and like, oh my gosh, man. Like if you watch videos of DJ performance, especially the festival DJ performances and stuff, there's always like 100 people in comments. They're faking it. And we see it too. I mean, Loki and I have sat and watched some DJs doing their thing, and we're like, "Fuck's he even doing there?" You know what I mean? Because it's like it'll be one of those things where it's like they're throwing the faders around on channels that don't have anything playing through them because it makes them look like they're doing something, I guess. You know, like pretending to turn knobs that are on channels that they're not using, you know, and that kind of stuff. Um, I'm gonna say this. Um, we notice. DJs that know what they're doing know when you're faking it. We can tell. We can tell. We can tell if you're using the sync function. With you know, it's like just by watching you for a few minutes, like we can tell. You know, I remember there was one DJ on Twitch during one of the festivals who kept like reiterating. He's like, I have a touch sensitive. It's Newmark. This has touch sensitive functions, but I turn them off. But he was using the touch sensitive functions on his, and he says he's like I know it just looks like I'm touching the knobs, but I'm using the touch functions. I'm not just fucking bullshitting what I'm doing here. You know what I mean? But he felt like a need to reiterate that because people joke about DJs just fucking touching knobs for no reason. The reason that people joke about it is they've seen it fucking happen. And they've read about it in the comments probably too. If you're posing and you know it. Like, more power to you. Do your thing. If you're posing, and we know it. The audience doesn't care. The audience doesn't care. Can I reiterate that? The audience doesn't care. The audience cares about the performance you deliver, not what it looks like when you do it. I myself am of the mindset where if I'm touching something, it's because I need to touch it. Like, I do think that DJ Loki, I fake it. No, you don't. No, you don't. I watch you. um, the the more I guess the more skillful that you become as a DJ, the more that you're really actually using the tools that you have in front of you, the more parsimonious you become about using them. Right? Like you just don't have time to fuck around. It's like you're trying to juggle many things at the same time, and you're listening to your mix, you're cutting loops, you're doing the live things, you're filtering, you're cutting EQs. Loki, I love you. Um, but yeah, you don't have time. You don't have time for bullshit. I myself am one of those people that, like, I don't really touch it unless I'm doing something. You might not hear what I'm doing because I'm doing it in cue. But if you're watching me actually mix, you can, there will be something happening while you see my hands all up here, even if you don't know what I'm doing. Right? They're like, yes, something is actually happening. There's the DJ doing the thing, and then when the DJ is like all up like this in the headphones and doing something, they're like, oh, he's getting the next thing. It's like, there's logic, but they don't care if you're like standing around going like this and pretending to tweak your knobs and shit like that, just trying to look busy or something. Like, look busy. Is that like not like the fast food mentality right there? It's like, there's nothing left to fucking do but look busy if the manager walks by. You know what I mean? There's nothing left to do but look busy.
Mm.
You know? I'm not just paying you to stand there. Look busy. You know what I mean? Like, clean something, right? Yeah, we've all had that. We all have that drilled into us, right? Yeah, no, he doesn't fake it, Frantic. We don't jive that way. Loki wouldn't be able to fucking run tag sets with me all that time if he was faking it. What does Frantic say now here?
It says, admit guilty as charged. I had a fake gig once. I did live event, and I remember one DJ gave me the death stare look like, dude, what the fuck? And really, why? All because the equipment wasn't working.
Ha 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 ha. Okay, I have been in that situation where like something has failed, and so like I put on a mix CD. Like, it's usually one of my own mix CDs because I press my own CDs, but like, um, but I actually have done that before where something was going wrong and there was a technician trying to sort out the problem. But there was still a room that needed to be entertained, so I'd be like, "It's cool. I've got this mix CD. Everybody will love this." And pop that on for a little while. At the same time, I wasn't standing there at the decks pretending like I was doing it. I was trying to help the fucking tech fix the problem so that we could get the real shit back on. But yeah, that it happens. I mean, I have seen other DJs where they have pre-recorded their set and they have two copies of it on discs and they just kind of pretend like they're doing stuff during the show. It's the thing that I always say about that is like, okay, like, the audience really cares, like, why bother faking it if you can do it in the first place, right? But it's limiting because when you're playing to an audience, like, what you have prepared might not necessarily be the thing that's going to light up your crowd that night. And ultimately, what were we just talking about? Like, the DJ is there, like, you're there to connect minds through music. And so, if the way that you're connecting minds through music is getting them all angry at you because they don't like what you're spinning, I suppose that's one thing. But I mean, if you're woefully unprepared for a gig, um, what can I say? You're woefully unprepared. Um, uh, um, and the DJ EDC, they do that where the sets are pre-recorded and the DJ just touches knobs. Yes. Um, I have seen that. I've seen that. And I will say that sometimes there are technical reasons for that. I don't necessarily agree with those reasons. But part of the reason that they do that is to, first of all, ensure that anything that gets played is within their parameters of, that it's not offensive or what have you. For one thing, it's kind of like, when you're doing the high school rock show and they want to know what songs you're going to play so that you're not screaming anal inflicted death sentence, um, which was what one of the bands in my high school did. Not one that I played in, mind you, but they played the MOD, so the most offensive fucking song they could possibly find at the time, and played that during the homegrown rock concert, and we all went, whoa, yeah. But they were seniors; they didn't have to come back the next year. Anyway, yeah. So when you're doing the big festivals and stuff like that, so the simple fact is that a lot can go wrong when you're doing those things, like the wind's fucking blowing. We're talking about cruise ships, Frantic. You've done some of that, right? Like, I'm not going to say it, Loki. I've been on cruise ships where, I'm playing on the top deck and the wind is just astounding. It's like I like literally have had to put like bricks on my shit to keep it from blowing away, and like yeah, chasing after CDs because the wind is ripping them out of your hand when you're trying to put them in. And that can happen with the outdoor festivals and stuff like that. Of course, Burning Man is notorious for destroying equipment just because of the fine sand getting into everything and chewing it to bits. Yes.
Yeah.
And is very, very easy way to destroy your turntables is to take them to Burning Man.
Mm-hmm.
And or to do forest parties. I had to clean. I had a friend that did forest parties, and I cleaned I cleaned and serviced their turntables, and it's a good thing I did.
I haven't even thought about that with the parties in the desert that I've been to.
Yeah, oh yeah, that shit's very damaging to sound equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so doing the outdoor festivals and stuff. The other thing, of course, too, is that they're coordinating visuals and they're coordinating lighting effects and all of that kind of stuff as well. And at the current state of technology, you can do that and still play a live set. Using a combination of Serato video and what's the program that you can preset all your lighting cues for the tracks that you're playing, and it does the whole DMX show thing. It's complicated, but no more complicated than doing it to a pre-recorded set or like something in Ableton or whatever. Yeah, I have seen that kind of stuff, and actually it's one of those things that like okay, so it's an unfortunate thing because some DJs that are actually really good DJs end up getting a lot of flack because they take a gig where they have to do that. And I will say that for myself, I've never taken a gig where I've had to do that. And I will play live and I will play live. And if it's a gig that requires me to do something like that, I'm kind of like, no amount of money is going to make that fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, my whole way of getting off is playing to an audience. It's like, it doesn't matter what songs I'm playing. What matters is my audience having a good time. It's the energy that gets me high. And that's a pretty good digression there. So, what does Frantic say up there?
He said, on the cruise ship, the only thing you need to fear is the boat rocking back and forth on the waves. It can throw your mixing off for like a split second.
Oh shit, yeah. Yeah, turntables on cruise ships, a lot of fun. No, yeah, that's when you go back to the old tricks, like putting rubber bands around an ashtray and balancing the turntables on the ashtrays. Yeah, trying to get everything that you can for shock absorption. But yeah, absolutely. Like what Frantic's talking about though is it's not like bobble, like somebody bumping into the table. It's like you're standing here and suddenly you're 6 feet the fuck away going, whoa, you know,
Yep.
because, you know, the boat is, you know, it's like a fucking city and it's going like this, you know what I mean? So if you're up on the top deck throwing a party, it's like everybody is like, you know, 6 feet to the left, 8 feet to the right, you know what I mean?
Okay.
No, it can be very dramatic. Yeah, Frantic's laughing up there. Oh, official DJ Loki. Henry's brother's light mapping was amazing. Yes. We did a show, and Joe Wheaton, our friend Henry's brother, was doing the projections. So he had projection mapping around the tent and had different things going on in it while we were DJing, and it was very cool. And some of it was live, like you had live camera going up onto the thing. And wait, who was it that was like really really famous who was at that party? Who Loki spotted them? Who was it, Loki? That was, you were like, is what was it, Martin Scorsese or something like that? You were like, is that fucking Martin Scorsese on our dance floor? Yeah. Okay, yes, it was. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, we had Martin Scorsese on the dance floor.
Nice. Well,
Film
speaking
festival.
to that, and we were going about different careers and whatnot. There is a in Binghamton yearly light projection
Mm.
mapping festival.
It is amazing. I want to go in real life. I've seen the video.
Yeah, I've been there since well, I missed a couple because of the pandemic. But anyway, each projection mapping section in the city has its own soundtrack.
Yeah.
So there are people recording those, so that you have it's a story. Each like projection, 8 to 10 minute piece has its own soundtrack.
One of the first things that I ever saw of projection mapping was like in the early 2000s watching YouTube, and it was something they did over in Europe, and it was like this really amazing like ambient soundscape thing with a lot of like found sound kind of stuff, and the projection mapping all going along with it. It was shot up on a famous building, like it was at Prague or something, or Vienna. And yeah, so the soundscapes that they create for these things are incredible as well. Virtual Temple, hey, how are you? Good to see you. And you know, hey, no worries, and shoot us a message and we'll get caught up. How's that? And looking forward to more of these awesome festivals that we do here on Twitch. It's been a real boon to our scene all the way around. Virtual Temple, thanks for having us about. Let's see. So did we actually answer Frantic's question? Yeah, I think we got far enough down the button pushing thing. You know, no, you're not just standing around pushing buttons. You're reading a room, and your number one job is a selector. You know, we were talking about that when we were talking about like the old school sock hop kind of thing. It's like you're a selector, and and your job is to choose the music that's going to take people on an emotional journey, and connect minds through music.
Yeah.
Which is why we do this show, Musically Minded.
Sure.
So let's see. We've got about 10 minutes left. And where were we on your question there before? We were talking about where we see and hear DJs in the world, and that, you know, we got sidetracked by the ubiquity of music and talking about medical music minded stuff, which is pretty fucking neat. But yeah, so let's see, someplace, you know, when I worked for Scratch, the big reason that I worked for Scratch, which is an agency out of New York, was because at the time they were doing a type of gig that was interesting to me that I had not had the opportunity to do before. They were doing fashion gigs,
Mm-hmm.
and and a lot of that was in-store promotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like one place that it was one of those things that you didn't see it for the longest time, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh man, there's like a DJ playing at this store in the mall. Like they're having an event, they're having like a fashion show, there's a DJ, people are shopping, and it's an event, they're having a sale, whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
And like it was like one of those things, you had never seen it, and then all of a sudden it started happening, and I saw it, and I was like, that's something I've never done. I want to do that. I want to get those brands on my resume.
Right.
And so I had the opportunity to do that kind of stuff. And sometimes sometimes it was things where it's like there's a big event going on, or like,
Mm-hmm.
fashions night out and that kind of
Yeah.
shit,
Sure.
like, big names and celebrities. But like, sometimes it was things like, playing at the, what was it, that Anne Klein, I guess it was Anne Klein, is that the brand,
I believe so. Yeah.
on Newberry Street, and it's like, it's not I mean, they're having a sale or an event or something like that, but it's
Right.
not like shit tons of people are knocking down the door for the promotion. It's just
Right.
people are coming in casually. And so the type of thing that you do at those events can be very, very different. In that case, I'd be playing like just groovy, jazzy background music, because you're playing the demographic. And then, when you have like something like when I did Sephora with Kat Von D, and it was like in the heart of Manhattan, and like LMFAO was the height of popularity in popular dance music kind of stuff. It was like everything was like through the roof, for that gig, because it was a whole bunch of young people,
Mm-hmm.
and so you would be, you'd want to fit the groove to the gig, to the audience, and that
Sure.
kind of thing.
Sure.
Um, where are some, so obviously, like, going into the mall and there's a fucking DJ
Right.
playing there, that's someplace where, you know, where that combination of sound design, and the theory behind, having music in a place in the first place gets
Sure.
combined with the live feedback.
Um.
Like, what are the shoppers doing? Are they bumping their heads and going slow, or are they like every time you change their songs? You know what I mean?
Well, like on that note, like on the large 2-3 day festivals like Dragon Con and stuff, you have the DJs late into the night to connect the first day to the next day, and to keep those that are up till the wee hours, if you will, uh, active and interested. And hey, we want to stay here. We want to be here. Like this is the place to be.
The notorious after parties.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so festivals, that's something, I've done a number of conventions and festivals and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, so that's definitely a thing that you can do with DJ. He's talking about Electric Daisy up here,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of EBM festivals and stuff like that. And it's kind of interesting because it's very, very, doing festival sets is really very different from doing like, a long set. It's like, um, but they're all potential things that you can do with your DJing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as we've said before, every DJ is going to have their own goals that they wish to accomplish with DJing, and their own approach, their own desire. You know, maybe we'll talk about this a bit next week. I've had a very, very long DJ career, and so doing things like, working for scratch to do these particular kind of gigs was a way to keep my job interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
That I am always looking for different ways to explore what the possibilities of DJing are. Like, you know, I've said before, like I haven't gotten into the whole virtual reality thing, but there's a whole
Yes.
you know, there's a whole world out there where it's like you don't have to, you know, you don't have to haul fucking gear to do it. You know what I mean? The payouts are different.
Yeah.
You know, the payouts are different doing Twitch or VR than they are doing, you know, live events and stuff like that. Of course, you know, different kinds of events have different expectations and pay differently, but but there are a lot of ways that you can uh, what is it? Xeno Hero. How do we say it? Xeno Hero. I DJ for virtual nightclubs like 5 days a week. There you go. Yeah, I've got a buddy who does that as well. DJs in Second Life.
I believe so.
Is it
Yeah.
Second Life or what's the other one? The other one. There's more than one.
There's many.
Yeah. Anyway, but it doesn't really matter. But the point is that they do. Okay. Xeno Hero here says I used to do Second Life. Yeah. So there's, you know, there's a whole world of VR DJing, and like, you know, not for nothing, some of the DJs that do that are super skillful. And you know, so you know, you'll hear really amazing sets in virtual nightclubs as you would going to, I mean, you know, to real nightclubs, hopefully. Where are we at on time? We are really crunching the edge. Final Fantasy 14. DJing in Final Fantasy 14. Now that's something I wouldn't have thought. You know what? We're going to pick this up next week. We're going to continue with this conversation next week. Places that we see and hear DJs and different approaches to the hobby and career of DJing. And I really want to pick it up, and we'll tell some stories too about some of the weird situations I have found myself in as a professional DJ for one reason or another, because I've got a couple bubbling up in here.
Okay.
In the meantime, though, we're gonna raid over to Space Couch in a moment to catch the Squawk Star with X Hyena on the patient's couch today. X Hyena from Boston. We're gonna have their video.
Their videos on MTV TV on Wednesday.
There you go. For New Music O'Clock.
Yes.
And we've got some other exciting stuff. Do you want to tell them, or should I?
You should. You
okay,
really should.
We've got the new Be Born Benton video on New Music O'Clock.
Yes.
And we've got a new version of a favorite You Shriek song. And as I keep saying, it gives me goosebumps. It will give you goosebumps too. So tune in for that. Saturday night we've got a retro rumpus, and of course next Sunday we'll be back right here for more musically minded conversation. And as I said, we'll be picking it up from where we've left off today, roughly speaking. And so thank you for your questions. Thank you, Frantic. Thank you, Loki. Thank you, Zeno. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And of course, do support us over on Patreon, ADDAMBOMBB. Find us anywhere on the internet by spelling that correctly. Frantic, I don't know. I would love to get you, Shriek, playing live again myself, but I do not know. Razi has been working on what he calls his perpetually unfinished new album. So we'll see what happens. And was there anything else that we needed to...
I would say support DJ Addambombb on his Patreon and send questions.
Oh, yes. You can send us questions if you have musically minded questions. Like I said, if I can answer it quickly in the mail for you, I will. But but some of the wonderful rabbit holes we have run down come from those questions. So please do. Yeah, I guess that means it's about time to hit the theme song and we'll raid over to Space Couch. All right, so thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see you next Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern for more musically minded conversation with DJD42, the birthday girl in the house. She's up here on this side of the screen. She's over here because she's in the house, but she's over here because she's in the house. Thank you for letting us know all the good things that are going on, Diana. And thank you for doing this with us. I'm glad you had a great time at your party last night. On that note, thank you again, everybody. We'll see you.